I'm Emma, and my world used to feel like a cozy, worn-in quilt. Safe, familiar, even with its frayed edges. Living in our little Ohio home with Sam, my husband of 7 years, I thought we had built something unbreakable, stitched together by quiet moments and shared dreams. But lately, the air between us has grown heavy, thick with secrets I can't unravel. I've noticed the late nights, the dodged glances, the way his phone buzzes like a warning I'm too afraid to heed. My heart races with a gnawing dread, sensing a storm brewing just out of sight. And then, one chilling morning, a knock at the door shattered everything I thought I knew, leaving me teetering on the edge of a choice that could destroy us both. What did I do to save us, and at what cost? There's a peculiar hum to the early morning in our little corner of Ohio, a kind of stillness that wraps around you like a worn-out quilt. It's not the kind of quiet that soothes, though. It's the kind that makes you notice every creak of the house, every distant bark of a neighbor's dog. I'm Emma, 32, and I've spent the last 7 years building a life with Sam, who's 35, in this modest, 2-bedroom place we call home. It's nothing fancy, just a squat little house with peeling paint on the shutters and a mailbox that leans slightly to the left, nestled in a suburban neighborhood where folks smile politely but gossip fiercely behind closed doors. I'm a freelance graphic designer, which means most days I'm hunched over my laptop in our cramped kitchen, tweaking logos and layouts for clients who always want just one more change. Sam, on the other hand, is a mechanic at a local garage, his hands perpetually stained with grease, his overalls carrying the faint scent of motor oil even after a wash. We're not rolling in money, never have been, but we've always made it work. Or at least I believed we did. Our life together isn't a fairy tale, but it's ours. There's love here, woven into the way Sam still reaches for my hand when we're watching TV, or how I'll leave a sticky note on the fridge with a silly doodle just to make him smirk when he gets home. But it's not all sunshine. We bicker over the bills sometimes, especially when an unexpected expense crops up, like last month's water heater fiasco. We've had those late-night conversations too, the kind where we lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, talking about dreams we've had to shelve, my hope to open a small design studio, his wish to take a real vacation somewhere with a beach and no cell service. And then there are the moments when Sam just goes quiet. Not angry, not distant in a way I can name, just elsewhere. I've asked him about it, of course, but he brushes it off with a shrug and a mumbled, "I'm fine, Em." I've learned not to push, though it gnaws at me. This morning started like most. I was at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee cooling beside me, the bitter steam curling up as I scrolled through a barrage of client emails. My laptop screen glowed with half-finished designs, and I was already mentally tallying how many hours I'd need to pull to meet a deadline. Sam was rushing as usual, his work boots thudding against the hardwood floor with a rhythm I've come to know by heart. He leaned down, his stubble grazing my cheek as he planted a quick kiss there, muttering something about being late for a big job at the garage. "Don't work too hard, babe," he said, his voice rough from sleep, and I managed a half-smile before he was out the door, the screen slamming shut behind him with that familiar jarring clatter. But as the days rolled on after that morning, something started to feel off. Sam wasn't just rushing out the door anymore. He was coming home later and later, well past the time the garage usually shut down for the night. I'd sit at the kitchen table, my laptop long since closed, staring at the clock as the minutes ticked by, the leftovers I'd made for dinner growing cold on the counter. When he finally did walk in, he'd mumble something vague about overtime or a tough repair job. But he wouldn't meet my eyes. His phone, too, started buzzing more than usual, little vibrations rattling against the counter or from his pocket, and every time he'd glance at the screen and shove it away, ignoring the call with a tightness in his jaw I couldn't ignore. I'd ask how his day was, just trying to make conversation, and he'd flinch, actually flinch, like I'd struck a nerve, before forcing a smile and saying it was fine. Fine. That word started to sound like a lie. It wasn't just one thing. It was a collection of little oddities piling up, each one a pebble in my shoe I couldn't shake out. By the third night of this, my stomach was in knots, a quiet dread settling in as I wondered what he wasn't telling me. Then came that evening, the one that cracked everything open. I'd been in the living room, trying to distract myself with some mindless TV, when I heard the back door creak open and shut, followed by the faint sound of pacing footsteps coming from the garage. Curious and, honestly, a little worried, I slipped on my sneakers and padded out there, the cool night air biting at my arms as I pushed the door open. There was Sam, pacing back and forth between his workbench and the old shelves stacked with tools, his boots scuffing against the concrete floor. He was muttering to himself, low and frantic, words I couldn't quite catch, and in his hand was a crumpled piece of paper, clutched so tight his knuckles were white. When he saw me standing there in the doorway, he froze, his eyes wide and darting, and he shoved that paper into his pocket so fast it was like he thought I wouldn't notice. "Hey, Em," he said, his voice strained, trying to play it cool as he wiped a hand across his brow, but his face was pale, almost sickly under the harsh fluorescent light of the garage. I felt this heavy tension bloom in my chest, like a weight pressing down, making it hard to breathe. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe, and just looked at him for a long moment, taking in the way his shoulders were hunched, the way he couldn't hold my gaze for more than a second. "What's wrong, Sam?" I asked, my voice soft but steady, cutting through the thick silence between us. I wasn't accusing, not yet, but I needed to know. The next morning, the air in our kitchen felt like it was pressing down on us, heavy with a dread I couldn't shake. Sam and I sat at the table, not speaking, just staring at the chipped edges of our coffee mugs, as if they held some kind of answer. The silence between us was louder than any words could be, a thick fog of unspoken fears after last night's tense moment in the garage. I hadn't pressed him further then, though every fiber of me wanted to, but I knew something was wrong, terribly wrong. My mind kept circling back to that crumpled paper he'd hidden, to the way his voice had cracked when he tried to brush me off. Now, as the clock ticked on the wall, each second seemed to stretch into eternity, and I could feel the weight of whatever he was hiding bearing down on us both. Then it came, the sound of heavy footsteps thudding on the porch, deliberate and unhurried, like whoever was out there knew they had all the time in the world. My stomach twisted, a cold sweat prickling at the back of my neck. Before I could even look at Sam, a loud, insistent knock rattled the front door, sharp and demanding. Sam jumped in his seat, his mug nearly slipping from his hands, his face draining of what little color it had left. I stood up, my legs feeling like they might give out, and made my way to the door, each step heavier than the last. My hand hesitated on the knob, my heart thumping so hard I could hear it in my ears. But I forced myself to turn it and pull the door open. Two men stood there, filling the doorway with their presence. The first was tall, broad-shouldered, with a buzz cut that made his hard features even more intimidating. He wore a cheap suit, too tight around his frame, the fabric straining at the seams. His name was Vince, I'd soon learn. The other was shorter, wiry, with a jagged scar running down his cheek like a cruel signature. His eyes were cold, calculating, slicing through me as if he could see every thought in my head. That was Tony. Before I could say a word, they pushed past me, not waiting for an invitation, their boots scuffing against the hardwood as they invaded our space. Vince's voice cut through the air like a blade, rough and unyielding. "We're here for the 15 grand Sam owes, plus interest, and we ain't leaving without it." I turned to Sam, who was still at the table, his hands trembling so badly the coffee in his mug rippled. He opened his mouth, but the words stumbled out, barely audible, a stammered mess of, I don't have it right now. Tony smirked, a chilling twist of his lips, as he cracked his knuckles with a slow, deliberate pop that echoed in the quiet room. Vince, meanwhile, loomed over us, his shadow falling across the table like a storm cloud. "Then we'll take the car," he growled, his eyes flicking toward the window where our beat-up sedan sat in the driveway. "And more, if we gotta. You got till the end of the day, or we start taking what we want." My chest tightened, a surge of protectiveness roaring through me as I watched Sam shrink under their gaze. I stepped forward, placing myself between him and these predators, my heart pounding so fiercely I thought it might burst, but my voice came out steady, sharper than I expected. "We'll find a way to pay. Just give us a little time." Vince's eyes narrowed, studying me like I was a puzzle he didn't quite understand, while Tony let out a low, mocking chuckle that made my skin crawl. I could feel Sam's stare on my back, confused and desperate, but I didn't dare turn to look at him. I had to hold my ground, had to keep them from tearing apart what little we had left. But then, in a moment of pure, reckless desperation, something snapped inside me. I looked Vince dead in the eye, my breath catching in my throat as the words tumbled out before I could stop them. "What if I pay a different way?" My voice hung in the air, fragile and reckless, a thread of desperation that I couldn't pull back even if I wanted to. Vince's grip tightened on my arm, firm but not bruising, as he yanked me closer, his breath hot and sour against my ear. "This better be worth our time, sweetheart," he muttered, his tone dripping with a menace that sent a shiver racing down my spine. My stomach churned, a sickening cocktail of fear, disgust, and something else. Something darker, a strange, inexplicable thrill that I hated myself for feeling. I stole a glance at Sam, still seated at the kitchen table, his face a mask of horror, eyes wide and unblinking, like he couldn't process what was unfolding before him. He looked so small in that moment, so broken, and it tore at me in ways I couldn't name. Tony stepped forward then, his scarred face twisting into a smirk that made my skin crawl. He looked me up and down, his gaze lingering in a way that felt like a violation all on its own. Well, looks like we're about to close the deal in style," he sneered, his words slimy and suggestive, leaving no doubt about what he meant. My mind was a storm, thoughts crashing into each other with brutal force. Shame burned hot in my chest, a searing reminder of what I was on the verge of doing, of the line I was about to cross. But beneath that shame was a raw, aching desperation to protect Sam, to keep him from the physical harm these men could so easily inflict. I'd seen the way Tony's knuckles cracked, the way Vince's bulk seemed to promise violence with every move. I couldn't let them touch Sam, not if there was any other way. And yet, even as I stood there, I felt this surreal disconnect, like I was both in control and utterly powerless, a puppet dangling on strings I couldn't see. I turned my head slightly, my voice cracking as I forced the words out. "Sam, look away, please." But he didn't move, didn't even blink, rooted to the spot like a statue carved from dread. His eyes stayed locked on me, pleading silently for something I couldn't give him. Maybe forgiveness, maybe a way out. I wanted to scream, to shatter the suffocating tension in the room, but all I could do was stand there as Vince's hand slid from my arm to my waist, pulling me against him with a possessive force that made my breath hitch. His lips brushed my neck, a fleeting, unwanted touch that sent a wave of revulsion through me, mingling with the fear that clawed at my insides. I could smell the stale tobacco on his breath, feel the roughness of his stubble against my skin, and it took everything in me not to pull away, not to let him see how much I hated this. The room itself seemed to close in around us, every detail sharper, more oppressive, as if it were complicit in what was happening. The faded couch in the corner, its fabric worn thin from years of use, sagged under the weight of invisible ghosts. The coffee table sat cluttered with unpaid bills, their edges curling from being handled too many times. a stark reminder of why we were in this mess to begin with. The air carried the faint, lingering scent of motor oil from Sam's work clothes, a smell that usually grounded me, reminded me of him, but now it just twisted the knife deeper, a cruel echo of normalcy in a moment that was anything but. The light filtering through the blinds cast harsh stripes across the floor, cutting the room into jagged pieces, mirroring the way I felt inside, fractured, on the edge of breaking. My heart was a wild thing, pounding against my ribs as I tried to anchor myself, to find some shred of strength in the chaos of my thoughts. I kept telling myself this was for Sam, that I was buying us time, maybe even saving him from a beating or worse. But the weight of my choice pressed down on me, heavy and unyielding, a burden I knew I'd carry long after this moment passed. I could feel Vince's grip tightening, his presence suffocating, and I fought the urge. As Vince's grip tightens around my waist, I feel the heat of his breath against my neck, his kisses growing more insistent, more demanding, each one a violation that sends shivers of revulsion down my spine. The roughness of his stubble scrapes against my skin, a harsh reminder of how trapped I am in this moment. Then there's Tony, his hands wandering over me with a cold, calculated precision, fingers like ice against my trembling frame. Their movements are eerily synchronized, as if they've done this before, and it's both invasive and disorienting. My body reacts in ways I can't control, a tingling rush of adrenaline coursing through me, making my skin prickle despite the sickening wrongness of it all. I hate that part of me feels a dark, forbidden thrill, a twisted undercurrent that I can't escape, even as my mind screams at me to stop. My heart is a battlefield, torn apart by conflicting emotions that rip through me like a storm. There's the gut-wrenching betrayal of Sam, who stands just a few feet away, his presence a silent weight in the room. I can't bear to look at him fully, but from the corner of my eye, I see the tears welling up, glistening in the dim light as they threaten to spill over. His shallow breathing cuts through the air, each ragged inhale a dagger to my chest, a sound of pain and helplessness that I know I'm causing. He's fighting to hold himself together, and I'm the one breaking him. Then there's the guilt, a heavy, suffocating fog that wraps around me, reminding me of every vow I've made, every promise of love and loyalty now shattered in this act of desperation. Yet, beneath it all, there's that sick realization that part of me, however small, is caught up in the intensity of this moment, drawn to the edge of something I shouldn't want. It's a betrayal of myself as much as it is of Sam, and it makes my stomach churn with self-loathing. Every sensation is amplified, stretched into an agonizing eternity. Vince's presence is overwhelming, the scent of stale tobacco clinging to him, mixing with the raw, earthy smell of his sweat. His hands are rough, calloused, gripping me with a force that leaves no room for escape, each touch a reminder of the power he holds over me right now. Tony's fingers, by contrast, are unnervingly cold, trailing over me with a detached curiosity that makes my skin crawl, as if I'm nothing more than an object to be appraised. The air in the room feels thick, heavy with tension, pressing down on me until I can barely breathe. And always, in the background, there's Sam, his uneven breaths, the soft, almost imperceptible sound of his fists clenching at his sides, the weight of his gaze even though I can't meet it. Each second drags on, time itself seeming to mock me as I'm pulled deeper into this act, losing myself in a haze of guilt and something darker, something I can't name without hating myself more. I'm caught in a storm of my own making, my mind racing as I try to hold on to why I'm doing this. It's for Sam, I tell myself over and over, a mantra that's starting to feel hollow. It's to settle the debt, to keep those fists and threats away from him, to protect the life we've built, even if it's crumbling now. But as Vince's grip shifts, as Tony's low, guttural chuckle echoes in my ear, I feel myself slipping, my resolve fraying at the edges. My body moves on autopilot, responding in ways that make my cheeks burn with shame, while my heart aches with the knowledge of what I'm sacrificing. I'm betraying everything I hold dear, right in front of the man I love, and the weight of that betrayal is a physical pain, a tightness in my chest that threatens to crush me. The moments stretch on, each one a new wound. Until finally, Vince pulls back, his breath heavy as he wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. His eyes glint with a cold satisfaction as he mutters, "Debts paid in full." The next morning, I wake up on the couch, the lumpy cushions digging into my back, a stark reminder of why I couldn't bring myself to climb into our bed last night. The house is eerily quiet, the kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to shatter it. I sit up slowly, my neck stiff, my eyes heavy with the weight of a sleepless night. There's an ache in my chest, sharp and unrelenting, as I glance toward the kitchen and see Sam already there, hunched over the table. He's staring at a cold cup of coffee, the steam long gone, his face pale and drawn like he hasn't slept either. His hands are folded in front of him, knuckles white from gripping too hard, and the lines around his eyes seem deeper, etched by something more than just exhaustion. I swallow hard, the lump in my throat making it difficult to breathe, and I shuffle into the room, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. We barely speak, each word feeling like a landmine waiting to detonate. I hover near the counter, gripping the edge for support, and manage to mutter a weak, "I'm sorry, Sam." My voice cracks on his name, barely above a whisper, but it's all I can muster. He doesn't look at me, just shakes his head slowly, his jaw tight. When he finally speaks, his voice is hoarse, raw, like he's been shouting into the void all night. "I don't even know how to process this, Em. I don't know how to look at you right now." His words cut deeper than I expected, slicing through the fragile hope I'd been clinging to. I want to reach out, to touch his shoulder, to bridge the chasm between us, but my hand freezes midair, and I let it fall back to my side. There's nothing I can say to fix this, nothing that won't sound hollow after what happened yesterday. The day drags on in painful, fragmented moments, each one a reminder of the fracture between us. We pass each other in the narrow hallway, our shoulders brushing just enough to make my skin prickle with unease, but neither of us meets the other's gaze. I keep my eyes on the floor, counting the scuffs on the wood, while I hear his heavy steps falter for a split second before moving on. The TV hums in the background, turned on low as a feeble distraction, some mindless talk show host droning on about nothing important. I sit on the couch, pretending to watch, but my mind is elsewhere, replaying every second of yesterday's nightmare. The sound of Vince's rough voice, the cold calculation in Tony's eyes, the way my own choices unraveled everything I thought I knew about myself. I can't shake the memory of their hands, the unwanted closeness, the way my body betrayed me with sensations I despise myself for feeling. It's a stain on my soul, one I can't scrub away no matter how hard I try. I catch glimpses of Sam throughout the day, small snapshots of his pain that twist the knife deeper. I see him in the kitchen at one point, standing by the sink, his back to me. His shoulders are shaking slightly, and I realize he's wiping his eyes with the heel of his hand, quick and discreet, like he doesn't want me to notice. But I do. I notice everything now. The way he flinches when I enter a room, the way he keeps his distance, as if touching me might burn him. I wonder if he blames me for what I did, for the desperate bargain I made to protect him, or if he blames himself for the debt that brought those men to our door in the first place. Maybe it's both. Maybe we're both drowning in this guilt, unable to reach each other through the murky waters. But neither of us has the courage to ask, to voice the questions that hang heavy in the air between us. We're too afraid of the answers, too scared of what they might mean for whatever's left of us. As the hours crawl by, I find myself retreating inward, my thoughts a tangled mess of regret and fear. The guilt gnaws at me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.